morning and welcome to World News, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Saria Strzemska. Today, London will play host to a meeting of Western diplomats who will discuss further efforts aimed at putting an end to Russia's war in Ukraine. In attendance will be officials from the UK, France, Germany, Ukraine and the US. Washington will be represented by Trump's Ukraine envoy, General Keith Kellogg, after Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff scrapped their plan to visit London. The talks come amid reports indicating Russia might be willing to clinch an armistice deal along the current front line if gifted considerable concessions. On Tuesday, the Financial Times wrote that Russia might be willing to cease its hostilities against Ukraine in exchange of the US's recognition of Russian sovereignty over Crimea. And referring to those peace talks with Russia, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said, quote, "We are ready for any format of negotiations." The leader also pointed out that the Ukrainian delegation has a mandate to discuss the ceasefire at the upcoming talks in London.
As for our delegation, it has a mandate tomorrow for what it has a mandate for, discussing an unconditional ceasefire or a partial ceasefire. We are ready for this stage. We are also ready to state that after the ceasefire, we are ready to sit down in any format. If the Russians are ready for a complete ceasefire, then after a complete ceasefire with an understanding of how long it will last, we are ready for any format of negotiations with them. Any format.
As we've mentioned, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will not attend high-level talks in London focused on the war in Ukraine. While the State Department confirmed the change in plans, it emphasized that American participation in discussions remains strong.
The meetings in London are still occurring. He will not be attending, but that is not a statement regarding the meetings. It's a statement about logistical issues in his schedule.
Can you confirm who will participate from the U.S.?
Well, I do know, yes, that General Kellogg is there. And so he will be having those conversations. So we look forward to hearing back from him about whether or not we've had some success in London.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has offered to halt his invasion of Ukraine, vowing to give an order for his soldiers not to cross the current front line. This news comes ahead of the upcoming ceasefire talks in London. The Financial Times, citing sources familiar with the matter, reported that the move is part of an effort to reach a ceasefire deal with U.S. President Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, has reportedly told U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff that Russia could relinquish its claims to areas in the four partly Russian-occupied Ukrainian regions that are under Kiev's control, according to Financial Times report. Witkoff is also said to be headed to Russia later this week for further talks with the Russian president, according to the White House. At least 2 people have been wounded after Russia launched a rain of drones on Ukraine's civilian infrastructure. In its overnight strike, Russia targeted eastern, southern and central Ukraine, inflicting wounds on 2 people in the crucial port city of Odessa. Moscow also hit civilian infrastructure, including residential buildings and businesses in the regions of Poltava and Kharkiv. In the latter, a blast caused by a Russian drone sparked a large fire. Ukraine's State Emergency Service said in a statement on Wednesday morning. On Tuesday, the Vatican confirmed that Pope Francis's funeral will take place on Saturday morning, with several world leaders in attendance. So far, the list includes U.S. President Donald Trump, French President Emmanuel Macron, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, as well as other EU leaders. For more details, we go to our correspondent in Rome, Alex Kadir.
Well, just spending time in this city, you can see the tens of thousands of people flocking to Rome, flocking to the Vatican, wanting to honor the late Pope. That funeral will take place on Saturday. It will be in the morning. It will take place here behind me at the Basilica di Santa Maggiore in Rome. A break with tradition, as it will not take place in the Vatican itself. A relatively low-key funeral service for the late Pope. That was his wish, but we will see not just tens of thousands of people flocking from around the world, but also royalty and world leaders. Donald Trump will be in attendance, so too naturally will Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, as well as French President Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer from the UK, and others. We will also see royalty. Prince William of the UK instead of his father. His father, being the head of the Church of England, cannot come to the Pope's funeral. They will be joined by King Philippe of Belgium as well as the Spanish royal family. A historic moment, a historic funeral here in Rome for a pope who has been at the helm of the Catholic Church and its 1.4 billion believers for 12 years, a reformer, someone seen as really transforming the church. Of course, after the mourners have passed, after the funeral service has taken place, there will be the question of who replaces him. But for now, this city in mourning, focusing on mourning the late Pope. Alex Cadier, TVP World, Rome.
And we continue the same topic. The Vatican has released details for the funeral of Pope Francis, who passed away on Easter Monday at the age of 88. Mourners from around the world are expected to travel to Rome to pay their final respects to the pontiff, who led the Catholic Church for 12 years.
In newly released images by the Vatican, the late Pope is lying peacefully in a wooden coffin, dressed in red papal robes, a mitre on his head, and a rosary placed in his hands. The funeral will take place this Saturday at 10 a.m. local time, outside St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City.
On Saturday will be unusual funeral. Why? First, this is the first Pope for more than 100 years that is buried not in St. Peter's Basilica, but at Santa Maria Maggiore, St. Mary the Major. He wanted to be buried there, in front of the icon of the Virgin Mary. So there will be the procession, or will be, his body will go throughout the city of Rome. So this is unusual. And it makes this funeral also special. But it shows that he wanted to be buried in the St. Mary the Major Basilica for his love of Mary. When he started his apostolic pilgrimages, he always started with this basilica in front of the icon of the Blessed Virgin Mary. It shows his love to Mary.
U.S. President Donald Trump also paid tribute.
I just signed an executive order putting the flags of our country, all of them, all federal flags and state flags, at half-mast in honor of Pope Francis. So he was a good man, worked hard, he loved the world.
The funeral is expected to draw an extraordinary lineup of world leaders, including Prince William and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, French President Emmanuel Macron, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and US President Donald Trump.
As the Vatican prepares for the Pope's funeral set to take place this weekend, the questions about who will become the next Bishop of Rome is starting to make rounds. In the days following the funeral, the conclave will elect a new Pope, a tradition that has remained unchanged for centuries. Top candidates include cardinals from Africa, the US, and the Philippines.
As the sun rises over the Vatican, the Catholic Church faces a pivotal moment. The question of who will succeed in leading in its 1.4 billion followers is already unfolding. In Poland, where the Church holds significant influence, expectations are running high.
The Church needs a Pope who, after these great pontificates, because fortunately the 20th and 21st centuries it had great pontificates of popes, needs a Pope of creative continuity.
Pope Francis, while considered progressive by some, was criticized for his slow response to Ukraine's suffering, causing controversy. And Ukrainians are now waiting for a new pontiff to take a stronger, more decisive stance.
We would like to have someone who would behave like St. John Paul II. That is our dream.
Of 240 cardinals worldwide, only 135 were eligible to vote, as they must be under 80 years of age. Europe still leads with 53 cardinals, but under Pope Francis, there's been a significant shift with more appointments from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. In fact, 108 of the 135 electors gathering in the Sistine Chapel were appointed during his papacy, reflecting a broader global perspective that may also mirror the late Pope's wider policies.
The first challenge, and it will certainly be a challenge, is to maintain this direction, so to speak, of the universality of the Church on all continents. And in this sense, of course, there are certainly some opportunities there for cardinals from Africa and Asia.
While it remains unclear who would lead, there are several key names, each with a unique vision for the Church's future, who could lead the papacy. From Hungary, Peter Erdő represents a traditionalist, Europe-focused approach appealing to conservatives within the Church. Robert Serra of Guinea is known for his strong opposition to liberal theology and secularism, making him a favorite among those seeking a return to traditional teachings. Peter Turkson of Ghana, an energetic African leader, is seen as a conservative but also opposed to criminalizing LGBTQ relationships. In Italy, Pietro Parolin, the Vatican's Secretary of State, is a top contender with his diplomatic experience and ties to Pope Francis. Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines, known as the Asian Francis, is a moderate with a strong focus on social issues, while Matteo Suppi, also from Italy, brings a progressive, peace-driven approach to leadership. Whoever is chosen will face an array of challenges. The conclave is yet to be convened, and while many electors were chosen by Pope Francis, it's far from certain they'll back his progressive policies. The longest conclave of the 20th century lasted 5 days. Francis, however, was elected just a day after the 2013 conclave began. As always, anything can unfold before the white smoke rises over St. Peter's. Sasha Farbach, TVP World.
Russian hybrid warfare is running rampant, and Europe should be on high alert. This was the warning imparted by intelligence experts at the European Parliament in Brussels on Monday. More from our correspondent Angela Skujins, who is in Brussels.
Russia has shifted away from simply sowing chaos to attempting to destabilize European democracies through its hybrid threats. Now, this caution rang through a special European Parliamentary Committee in Brussels on Tuesday centred on European democracy. Now, this meeting was attended by disinformation and hybrid threat experts from around the world that warned those members of European Parliament that this should be the status quo, and the EU should implement all safeguards to protect its citizens against these hybrid threats. Now, we first heard from the Bulgarian investigative journalist Christo Grozev, who spoke to the committee via video link, and he mentioned specific examples of hybrid threats in Poland executed by Russia to resemble attacks from Ukraine. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Sabotage has significantly increased since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Last year alone, Polish counterintelligence arrested 9 operatives paid by Russian handlers for arson, attempted train derailments, and filming, all of this for propaganda purposes. A Belarusian operative set fire to a Warsaw megastore on Russian orders, falsely blaming it on Ukrainians.
We also heard from Nina Yankovic. She is the CEO of the American Sunlight Project. This is a not-for-profit aimed to target disinformation in the US. She told those MEPs that she had seen an uptick in sleeper agent attacks in the run-up to the Polish election later this year. Now, these sleeper agents are predominantly Russian bots online that are manipulating and using those weakened cyber laws, using AI to peddle those foreign interference attacks. Let's take a listen to what she told that committee.
This network is absolutely still active and still posting because we have folks like Elon Musk who don't believe that foreign interference is a threat anymore. Lately, it has been posting about the Canadian elections, which are coming up next month, but we've also seen some posts targeting Poland, given its elections coming up.
Now, these experts have advocated for the EU to really ramp up all of its cyber legislation, everything in the Digital Services Act handbook, and to also fund those not-for-profits and to see them as essential functioning institutions that sit alongside those other major crime-fighting networks. This caution, they said, should be heard before it is too late. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
And that's a wrap for this News Bulletin. World Talks with Klaudia Czerwińska coming up next.